I love
We
it.
are.
Oh, that's so good. That song just gets me every time. I'm just like, hey,
I get to be Duck and Katie today
I was
as
like,
Luis makes
yo,
making moves.
There we go.
I was like, I only do that kind of dressing on the weekends, Luis. What are you doing?
I'm in soup and sweater weather. I'm like non-stop wearing like different. I feel like every day I'm like, okay, I probably should own some more sweaters. I'm in the same like 3 on repeat.
Hey, you know what's funny is that you got it with the Bostonian sweater weather. You
Sweater
had it.
weather. Yeah.
You
Yeah, I'm
got it.
getting there.
Like you've been hanging out with Jill too much.
Yeah, definitely. Jill is the best.
Oh my
You need to
God.
hang out with Jill
I
all
was
the
like,
time.
I was doing something the other day, and I just had a thought of Jill in my head, and I was cracking up laughing by myself. And then I just like hit up Jill on the Facebook. I was like, man, I miss you, homie. I got to come that way soon, because Jill is seriously one of the nicest people on the planet, and she is so freaking funny. And she posted that picture of us in San Diego when we were walking down the street, and I was just like, oh yes, definitely, we got to have a link up soon. So, people, we are here today to record the flow. As you know, I see Eden and Ob sliding in. Mr. Moderator is always mistering and moderatoring. So it's that time. It's time to do the thing. So what have you been up to, Kate?
I've been making soup. As Eden said, it's freezing here in the Northeast, so I'm on a big soup kick. And for those of you who are following along, I'm behind on doing behind the scenes videos, but I just moved into this like 1700s farmhouse. And the one thing that you may or may not realize about a 1700s farmhouse is that every room is drafty. So we're like no heat in that room, in that room, in that room, because this house is big. So don't go in those rooms. Wear your slippers, get your sweaters, have some soup.
Oh, come on now. What is your go-to like warm the body from the inside soup?
I was telling Glenn this the other day. I own this cookbook called the New England Soup Factory Cookbook. I don't even know if they print it anymore, but I've bought probably, 40 copies of this book in my life that I've given to like everyone. And I've made I think it's close to every recipe in the book. Dane claims we're at only about half, but we've made a lot of recipes from this book. And there's probably 3 that are my go-to favorites out of it. So there's a Greek chicken noodle, which is lemony chicken noodle, spinach, super easy, super good eggs.
I used that example in a podcast the other day. I was talking about something, and I was talking about what if you were making like Greek, I'm not even going to, I know what it was. The Streamerly video that I posted on LinkedIn today.
Oh yeah,
in that interview, I mentioned making the Greek soup, whose name I wasn't going to try to prounce. It's lemonioli or something like that.
Yeah,
and that's it. So it's super
like
funny you say that, because I watched that interview yesterday, and I was like, wow, I can't believe I said that.
That one is really good. And then there's a sweet potato and caramelized onion soup, which is like liquid sugar, but like so satisfying. There's that one that's awesome. And then the one that I just made last night or 2 nights ago is it's a corn chowder with roasted red pepper. So also amazing.
Oh, so good. So good. One of my favorite things is kind of crazy. We'll get off this weekend soup podcast very soon.
Nope. That's the topic today is soup. Are you ready? We're in.
I like to save the Costco chicken carcasses, after you peel all the chicken off, you keep it. I save it. When I get about 5 deep, you literally just put them in a pot and you start to boil them down. And then in the cast iron, I take onion, cut it in half, and just get that, that caramelization on the onion, and then drop it in, bunch of celery, carrots, game over, boil it down. It makes the dopest soup. You just fish all the bones out or use a strainer. And it's just a dope soup. You could add any type of noodles or pasta or whatever if you wish. Half the time I end up just brothing it. Like it's so good.
That might be my new. That's t-shirtable. Brothing it.
Brothing it is the thing. Like go to Whole Foods and just ask them for a bunch of bones and just boil them suckers down. And now you got a base to just throw whatever leftovers in it. You know
it's
what I mean?
very true. I need to get better at that.
Now they charge you a grip for them bones, but it used to be they would give them to you free. So
they don't want anything free at Whole Foods.
Now you live in Boston, so you could probably find butchers that just got like like cheaper bones than going to Whole Foods. But yeah,
Yep.
so good.
Yeah.
So good. All right, gang. So let me give you the housekeeping rules. What we do is we record the flow here every Tuesday. We normally start it off with some random access banter, like
Soup
how to
banter.
Yo, you know what? I think
seasonal banter. It's seasonal banter.
Yo, you need to have a special episode of Meet the Fam with Dina, and then you guys both make soup.
I know we should. I did a Meet the Fam episode with Dina, which was awesome. And I need to like clip it up and put it out because I still just love that episode. So yeah, we need to redo another one for sure.
Dude, everybody, all right, we're gonna have to get everybody send in your soup recipes to Katie, and then we're just gonna start like making the. I think we should make the Ecamm chicken soup for the stream.
Yeah, it's Saturday soup time.
Everybody's recipes. All right.
Anyway.
Yeah. Right. Anyway, so since you guys are here, you can ask your questions, throw them in, the chat with a little cue. We normally save them to the end. Every once in a while, I'll sidetrack the conversation and I catch one if it matches. Today, what we're going to do is go through this checklist with you guys. And by all means, if you haven't done so already, please drop over to the iTunes podcast store. That's not the right name. They keep changing it. It's just podcast now.
Isn't it just Apple like Apple Podcast? Yeah.
Yeah. But, okay. After like how many years it is, you figured they would just pick a name and leave it. Go to the Apple Podcast store, leave us a review if you find this interesting. Or, one of the best things you can do for this podcast or any podcast, if you really enjoy it, is to not only leave a review, but share it with some couple of friends, just like the shampoo commercial. And that's it. All right, so we're going to start it. I'll do a countdown, and then we'll come back to you after to do these Q's and these A's. Okay, let me
hey, Jill's on. We were just talking about you, Jill. Sorry.
We were just talking. Oh, man, she heard us talking spicy. And she
spicy. All right. We were talking about how much we miss you.
It was all good conversation. Love you, miss you. Alrighty then. Hey, what's up, Vicky? All right, here we go. In 5, 4, aloha, Flow Riders, and welcome to another edition of The Flow. I've been on vacation, so I don't know what episode this is, but we are here today, and I am your community manager from Ecamm Live, Doc Rock, along with my awesomest soup-making co-host,
Katie Fawkes. We're on episode 23. I think we're 23 today.
The Jordan episode.
I think it's 23. It may be 24 because I was doing editing yesterday. And we've been saying this for a while. I put my mouth where my money is, my money where my mouth is. And I did a little screen grab of my Descript process where I say, 8 bajillion times, and I highlighted it so that you see me in that zone, in that flow. But so it's either 23 or 24.
Crazy? Here's a dope thing about the script. You can actually copy those highlights, just say copy highlights, and paste them into a new composition, and that new composition will be like, you can make like speed clip.
That's our new theme song. That's just gonna be our new theme song at the beginning of the show. I say it a lot. Instead of like, that is my equivalent to like.
I want to do a chop cut of. See, I just did it. I would like to do a chop cut of you versus Michelle. She is the queen, and I yell at her about it constantly. But she says it with such sass that it's like and then girl, and I'm just like, Michelle, listen. If you say one more time, I tell you what. So it's interesting. You don't realize it. That's what I love about the script is it does help you find. When you say that, she says 8 jillion times.
8 jillion times. I said it 8 jillion times. But with the magic of Descript, I was able to highlight it and just be like, delete. And now I sound like perfect.
All right, what are we talking about today, Katie? I'm going to start speaking Japanese.
We are talking, don't speak any Japanese because then I'll have to cut that out too. Descript doesn't speak the Japanese yet. We are talking all about interviewing and interview guests. So in case you missed it, last week, we talked all about our podcast resolutions. Doc had all kinds of feelings about the word resolutions, but one of our plans for this year was to dive deeper into getting more guests, and questions came up about what the workflows are for guests. So we're pulling back all of our documents and all of our resources that we've made over the last couple of years so that we can go through the guest process in the world of podcasting. So I did drop the links for the 2 documents that we're going to be talking about today into the description. Paul's got them on hand as well if he checked his Slack. So we should be able to get all that to you so that you can follow along. But these are just templates that we'll be talking through today. So please feel free to snag them, make them your own, edit them, disagree with things, anything in between.
It's so good. It's so good. All right, let's dive in so that we can get us a nice, good recording for this podcast. I'm super excited about this because this is one of those things that everyone knows they need to do. I can never really think of a good analogy, but there's some out there. Like okay, here's one. Everyone should have a like fire contingency plan for their house. Everyone knows this. We all learned it from the minute we got into kindergarten, maybe even preschool. We did it every year for 13 years, right? You get to college, you do it a couple times. At work, you even do it. I don't know how many of my friends I can actually say have a fire drill, fire safety plan for their house. Everyone knows they should do it, but how many people really do it, right? This is that. Oh, you got a new house, so you gotta hey, you know what? I'm gonna tell the hubby. He would get it. He'd be like, he would engineer like a special slide and like a little ladder to throw out the window.
It's true.
Like, okay, we throw this ladder at an angle with this amount of pressure, we can get all 4 bodies on this. Yeah,
it's true.
He will over-engineer it. So to the bat pole outside your new Victorian house with a bat pole.
There you go.
This is one of those, right? Everyone should have this plan for what to do with their guests. I have to say, as a person who have to often answer these questions, I get super frustrated every time I see people, having this problem over and over again, especially because if they would watch any of us, they will see that we hit these bricks too. And then we go through the list and we go down it and we find it just like that. So if you we did it last week on this very show. So if you have this contingency plan in place, you can, Hitchhiker Guide to the Galaxy and don't panic. You know what I'm saying?
Grab your towel and your interview guide checklist and don't panic. I think that's absolutely true. I think having a checklist is really important. And I go back to, if you were with us for Leap into Podcasting, then you would hopefully remember Kirk did an amazing session. His session is actually all about failure, but in the beginning of his session, he talked about the fact that he spent, I think it was almost a year, if not more than a year, just being a guest on other people's podcasts before he relaunched his show. And every single episode of different podcasts that he went on, he took notes on their guest process, what that experience was like for him as a guest, how easy or cumbersome was it, what did he like or not like about their process. And he now has an incredible guest experience. If you sign on and do one of Kirk's shows, it's every single step along the way. You know how long the show is going to be when you join in. The questions in advance. The whole flow of the show, what's expected of you, how to promote it, everything, right? And he's built this incredible process because he watched what other people were doing. He created this document, but he's constantly updating it and constantly making changes to it as he goes forward, even now. So I think it should be a living document, and it should be something that you take the pieces that you like or don't like from, other experiences, and you build it out so that it's yours and it really reflects what you're trying to do, but also, it's effective and creates the experience that you want your guest to have.
Correct. And if you're doing it that way and you are keeping it a live document, that means when something changes in your setup, you can update it. When something changes on the front, right? I don't know, maybe there's this company that makes an app that you all know and love that might be coming out with a new version soon. You want to go and update that list. You want to keep it, keep it crispy. And as long as you have everything put in a way that you know what to do, you know how to troubleshoot it, it works. And this is going to sound crazy, people. This is going to sound really crazy, but I want you to imagine this thought, okay? So your zone got called, please do not get in line until your zone is called, people. You guys get on my nerves. I'm always in the first zone, so I hate it when everybody's in my way. Um, when your zone is called, you sit in your little seat, you got everything together, you buckle up, and then right before they close the door, hey everybody, let's go to this video that we know you've seen 1,000 times, but pay attention to it anyway.
Mhm.
And it makes me wonder how many people zone out when they play that video in the airplane. Everyone thinks they know what they're to do until something happens.
Mhm.
And then you don't know. Who you supposed to put the mask on first, yourself or the kids? How do I put this mask on? Where is the flotation device? So this is in the lines of like the airline safety briefing. I know you heard it and I know it's old, but you should go through it every single time. It should be able to be repeated. Like I can do the Hawaiian Airlines one verbatim because
Yeah.
I actually pay attention to it. And I've jumped out of planes for a living before. So like it's just one of those things. I know what it's like when people skip these things. And I have had to unfortunately send them home to their mama in a bag and be like, hey, the Army appreciates their service because they would tune out on the safety briefings. And you can never tune out on these things. And this is one of those things. This is your show. And a lot of you people, when you have a problem, you make like we ruined your life because this is the most important stream ever. And I always want to just throw it back at you and be like, well, did you do the checklist? Like, did you
Yeah.
have your contingency plan set up? And I don't mean to be mean about it, but if it's that important for you to complain to the whole internet that we ruined your life, how much of it did you take care of by yourself? And we want to give you that opportunity.
Yeah. I think building it out is incredibly important. But let's take one step back before we jump into the checklist, because there were a couple other things I wanted to touch on in this episode. First being whether or not you want to have guests. So, thinking that process through and whether or not you want to have a podcast that has guests on and whether that's a regular process. And if that is a decision that you want to make, what are the best ways to go about finding guests initially and bringing them onto your show? So we've talked a little bit about this in past episodes, but I wanted to just call it out specifically in this episode on guests, the concept of, as we just said with what Kirk was doing, there's whether we want to call it like pod swapping or, just reaching out and getting to know others in the podcasting space in your topic or industry. But I think it's a really good experience if you want to be able to bring guests on to be a guest on other people's shows, which then makes it easier for you to do that reciprocal ask and start building up your guest list, but also is going to give you that experience on what it's like to be a guest. Because really with a checklist, what you're trying to do is eliminate the amount of questions that your guest has and eliminate the potential issues that your podcast may have that could be caused by a guest and save yourself a ton of time. So like the initial time you spend on the checklist is a quarter of what you would be spending if you didn't have a checklist and you had to answer all of those questions coming in from your guest on like, what time is it? When do I need to be there earlier? Where's the link that I need to click through and join? Is it an audio or a video podcast? All of those questions, if you're able to answer them in an experience like a checklist up front, you don't have to be having this back and forth conversation with your guests, constantly reassuring them or reminding them or letting them know bits of information. Everything is in one easy to find place. But let's talk a little bit first, Doc, about like where, if you want to get into adding guests to your show or you want to start a show that has a guest element to it, what are the best ways to be able to find guests or, what's the starter process?
All right, so the first one, this is top secret, right? I'm actually teaching. I'm teaching this in my course, but I'll tell you the top secret answer. You guys ready? Write this down: JUST space ASK, period. That's the one.
Yep.
Seriously, you'd be surprised. This is so crazy, but you'll be surprised if you ask the people that you want to be on your show. You'd be surprised at how many people say, yeah. And I tell this story all the time because I didn't expect it to happen, but it was literally a swing at the fence. I when I first got hired by Ecamm, Katie and I were talking about something in the chat one day, and I was like, "Oh, you have to read this book that I've been on, and it's called How to Write Copy That Sells. It's by Ray Edwards. It is an amazing copywriting book. Like, I am so in love with this." And this was just after the time that Stephanie and Mike Alton, they had put out their entrepreneur books. I was reading this book like at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, pro tip: read more than one book at the same time. Trust me, your brain collects it better. I don't know why. That's a whole conversation. Anyway, so I was like, this is so amazing. And then as I was like starting to just get the vibe on this book, I happened to have wrote this email that I'm gonna ask Ray to be on my show. And I hadn't sent it yet because I was trying to make the copy sound more
You were trying to copyright it?
I was trying to copy more. And then I got this on my YouTube videos. Man, I'm loving your videos. Your videos are, I was like, oh my God, Uncle Ray, watch my show. Oh. I was like, oh, the minute that he pinged one of my videos, I was like, oh my God, thank you for leaving a thing. I can't believe you watch my shows. This is super incredible. I'm super excited. And I have this thing sitting in my draft box to send you to ask you to come on my show and just talk about copyright. And he was like, bet, win. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do now. You know, like, so you'd be amazed if you just ask. I'm sitting there like waiting to talk to one of my heroes. And when he showed up, are you ready? Like, are you really, really ready? Right? So that's the key. You got to be ready. So yes, just ask. Now, where do you find these places to ask? I can tell you one of the greatest ones is LinkedIn. Like if you go on LinkedIn, there's people dying to get on your show. Right? There's another secret that I teach in my course right here is, let's see, I'm trying to think of somebody in our circle who just dropped a book. The minute Roberto just dropped a book.
Diana has one upcoming.
Diana has a book coming up, right? You, as soon as you see them post that thing, like, hey, I got this new book coming up, this is when you reach out. Right.
Yeah, they want to be. Yeah, they want to be talking about.
Talking about that book, right? So when you hit them when the time is right, they got a new product, a new book, a new course, or something of that nature. You hit them up to get them on your show. There are entire applications like Podchaser that are designed to help you find guests, right? There are groups of like-minded people that get together. Sorry, hiccup. They get together.
Yeah.
Eden would tell you, cruising the hallway, right, at Social Media Marketing World or you know, POV or NAB or any kind of conference you can get to, you will find the next 15 episodes in the hallway by doing nothing. You can hold up a sign looking for podcast guests. You will have a line. You will have a line that look like Piggly Wiggly on check day. I'm just saying. It's not that hard. Like I think people are like, oh, I'm having a hard time finding guests for my show. I'm like, you're not looking that hard because people love talking about themselves.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think, and the only other one that I wrote down, which I think I've talked about, I'm sure probably way too many times on different shows, but look into the communities, look for who the moderators and who the admins and who the leaders are in various communities, whether that's on Facebook or LinkedIn or anywhere else in the topic that you're talking about, right? So, you know, if I was, doing a woodworking podcast and show, and you know, I would go into those woodworking communities, find the people who like to manage communities because they are influential, they know their topic, they know their people, and because you've made them feel special, they likely are not asked to do that a ton because they are managing communities, which is less flashy than writing books or having a podcast or having whatever themselves. So they're more likely to be excited about it and let their whole community know that they're going to be on your show. So they will bring a crowd more than, you know, someone who's doing this all the time and you're just one of many stops along the way. So I think it's a network. And I think that there's something about making, I hate to say like the little guys because they're not, but like I feel like that is an ignored audience as far as interview guest goes. And those are people who know what they're talking about and have a really high level of influence that are often forgotten about. So I think, being part of those communities and really finding those amazing people, it makes a big difference. So wanted to call that one out.
Yeah, and here's a great one. Let me tell you the domino effect of this. Okay, so I had the pleasure of being on Jared Spink's show, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I got to Jared Spink from Tom Buck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then so that's even another example. Like I was following Tom for like a year before, he was like looking for a live stream software, but because I was always in this community, I was like, hey, you should check out Ecamm. He's like, what is this Ecamm thing? And then Heather's like, I heard of that before, but I don't really know, blah, blah. And then the next thing you know, they're like, oh my God, this Ecamm thing, right? And then so from the Tom, I get to Jared, and then hanging out with Jared, during social media marketing world, Jared introduced me to Sydney Dionzon, right? Sydney is like a Sony creator for the Sony Cameraverse. Like he is a really awesome cat, right? Sydney was the vid and editor for Jenna Azera. Jenna Azera has an older sister that goes by the name of I Justine. So,
who is
like
a big deal.
Now that Sydney and I are friends, like the chances of me trying to get to Justine would be forever. But because Sydney and I are friends, Sydney would definitely vouch for me to Jenna, and Jenna is blood related to, like I Justine. So the loops can close faster than you think. You know what I mean? And like I can't tell you the amount of people that I consider my friends that I know because of Stephanie, right? So a lot of times when you are talking to folks and you're building these networks, you never just really know. Like
you never know who your people know, for sure. And platforms like LinkedIn make it slightly easier to be able to see who's in someone else's network. But and actually even beyond that, because platforms like LinkedIn are so built on this concept of thought leadership and, kind of contributing to these larger conversations around topics, it's really important if you're trying to, build authority in your topic on your podcast to find those guests who are the ones who are leaving insightful, helpful comments on, larger businesses or organizations' LinkedIn posts. Like the people who are wanting to contribute to those conversations and who are saying really, impactful and interesting things, those are the people that you want as guests as well on your podcast. So
100%.
Again, kind of keeping an eye on those, not just kind of, who are the people within your network, but who are the people who are wanting to talk about your topic and who are going out of their way to be helpful and be impactful in that space is really good to keep an eye on.
Here's one that I think often gets overlooked, but we did a whole episode on it. Guest swaps. Like,
exactly. I wrote that one down. I wrote that down. Yeah.
Definitely go back and check out the pod swap episode with Jared and I, but guest swaps is really, really good.
Yeah.
I know that you're going to be on the Jeff C show coming up soon.
Social Media News Live Friday.
You know what was crazy? When I announced the course, Jeff saw the social media post and said, hey, I want you to come on the show and talk about, your course. So you'd be amazed at the way people are paying attention. Like I don't know if I would do the thirst trap thing and be like, hey, looking for podcast guests on my social media things. If you could do that, go ahead. I don't know, maybe just that seems a little needy. I think there's better ways to do it. But you could throw the question of like, hey guys, what type of guests would you like to see on my show? And then your audience will go in and start filling in, and people who are paying attention will be like, hey, I can handle that. And I guess the last thing I would like to bring to the table is do yourself a favor whenever you're going to be a guest on the show, right? So Katie, you're going to be a guest on Jeff's show on Friday.
Yep.
Have in the back of your head 2 more guests that Jeff should talk to. That will kind of like work in the space. So you can be like, Jeff, listen, man, if your people are starting to talk about, things that are popping off in the ed tech category, man, you got to talk to my homegirl, Jill. Like she's really, really amazing. And
Doc, you stole my idea.
I don't know if you had, if you guys have covered this, but iPhones make really great cameras, and Eden, she works for Camo, so she could
Mhm.
come on and talk you through it. And she's so cool. Like she won't like be a Camo commercial. She'll tell you like all the other apps too. But this
Mhm.
just the one that she works for. She's super cool. You should like hit her up because Jeff did that for us in Dallas. He's like, let me introduce you to Eric and let me
Mhm.
introduce you to Lou Mangella and like some of the other, cats in his circle, right?
Yep.
So do them, and they will always invite you back because you're helping them. You're helping them. So like
Yeah.
I put Jeff on to Keely, and then she was on the show. And then yesterday he was like, oh, after talking to Keely, I got to get me a Discord server. And I was like,
Mhm.
got it.
Yeah. I think that would be my number one advice as we dive into guests. So if you're sitting there watching or listening and you're thinking to yourself, okay, I've been wanting to add guests to my show, or I've done a couple of guests, but I'm not quite there yet on my process, make it a New Year's resolution, make it a plan for this year, write it down and do it. Be a guest on at least 3 different shows first. So before you book those guests, get on some other shows, see how that experience goes for you, build those relationships and networks, figure out what you liked about that experience and didn't like about that experience and what were your favorite parts. Really have that whole vibe before you make updates to your checklist or build out a checklist in the first place. So, yeah. So that on that note, let's dive into our checklist. So if you're following along, Luis, can you show the QR code? So scan this QR code if you're watching on video. If you are listening later, you can grab this link from the show notes so you can follow along with us. But we're going to be talking through this specific guest checklist that we actually created for a show that we did with Stephanie Liu last year called Showrunner. If you haven't checked out Showrunner, it's a great show for learning how to be a showrunner, a video producer in the live streaming and podcasting and live event space and live selling as well. But this is the guest checklist that we created. It's really applicable to literally any kind of show, whether it's a podcast or a live stream or anything in between. But yeah, Doc, let's jump through. So looking here at the first page. So again, it's like really nicely branded. You don't need to start with that, but having like the name of your show or your logo or your brand colors really obvious is just a really great reminder to guests like what show they're on. It sounds silly, but you may have lots of guests who do multiple interviews or have really busy calendars, and like having that experience and having that that front and center is really important. And actually looking at this, what I might change later for, as we build out our own kind of flow guest checklist is having the link or a QR code back to, the website or back to where people can watch the show would be really important to have somewhere on this first page as well, which we don't have on this one, but certainly could.
Right.
And
You
then
would definitely put to join.
Yeah.
You put to join like right here because they're going to come looking for this. Trust me, it happens.
Yeah.
I do it all the time. Like, what was the join link again?
You're like, don't need this advice. Where's the join link? Where's the join link? Yeah. No, that's a really good point. Yeah. Have the like call in link or the join this broadcast link front and center. Always have that too in the, in the meeting invite or however you are sending that information over to your guest as well. But, and then this first page just has really like basic, like really should be obvious information. So, but put it in anyway, because it may not be obvious or, may not be something that people think about. I now am like streaming probably a couple of times per week if I include this show. And even today I sat down and I was like, turned everything on and I was working away and then I was about to jump on this call and I noticed that it was black and I was like, what did I do to this camera? This camera's not working. Like something happened and literally went around and it was turned off. It was in off mode, everyone. So I just needed to turn it to on mode and then it worked. So, it can be easily forgotten. So if you're like having some of that stuff down, even though it seems really obvious, is helpful for guests to be able to have something to double check so that they don't feel stupid asking you questions that they might want to know anyway or should know anyway. So just give it to them up front, even if it's obvious. We
You
have
know,
make sure your computer is plugged in, which may
that
seem
one
really
cracks me
dumb,
up,
but
but it happens all the time. People come
yeah.
on not plugged in, and it dies in the middle, and
Yeah,
it's
it's
like,
more important for the laptops, right? Or like, yeah, if they're calling in on, you know, I don't know, an iPad or whatever. Like if it's something that could run out of battery halfway through the show, it's a good reminder. Like if your cable is downstairs or like in a bag somewhere, that's not going to be easy to grab. So yeah.
it's super funny. It's so funny. And then I like the thing about, testing all your gear, your camera, your lights, your microphones. And I can't remember what I was watching the other day, but I thought it was hilarious. Somebody was hosting a show, and it's of a pretty high level piece of software or whatever. And then the audience member said, "Hey, can we get the host like a real microphone?" And it's because the host was still doing the show with the hello, thank you for calling Dell headset. I'm like, how are you still using the Dell headset in 2022? I
Yeah.
mean, like, it's inexcusable almost. But hey, there are people out there that do it every day, like use
Yeah.
a $20 headset. It's like, don't do that. Don't do
Well,
that.
and this is also like, again, if you are having one checklist for all different kinds of guests, it's also really important to remember that like in our space, you know, most of the guests that we're bringing on are really comfortable on camera and have their own studios. But you might be, you know, you might be bringing on guests who, you know, are not like you know, maybe what they're doing is not really tech heavy and they don't have a lot of this kind of stuff. So, you know, giving them some reminders on how to get it set up or how to look their best is super important. They might be using their phone as a camera, but you know, they may not have a microphone. So giving them some of that advice up front or making them feel really comfortable is going to improve the experience on your show, but it's also just going to improve your relationship with your guests.
Yes. You know, if you're going to bring, I'll fix what I'm trying to say. If I was going to talk to, say, one of my like higher end CEOs from, say, one of the companies here in the islands, and
Mhm.
I know that they're not going to have this type of stuff set up, I would send Brady or one of my other friends to their office to just bring them a setup, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if they're close enough to you, I would take my Mac Mini setup and set it up for them. You're like, look, when you do your interview, this is what you're going to do. But you
Yeah.
should also build one of these interview rooms in your office. I know you guys got the space for it because I won't be the other person that have you come on. When you guys show up on the news talking about the project or whatever, and you're using that screen where the person's head keeps disappearing and stuff, it just really ruins your brand. And I know you spend millions of dollars on branding. Like, why would you not do this? So, in a way, you can help. Back in the day, Leo used to send people a headset and a microphone, and
Hmm.
we're talking like $40 worth of equipment. But at the level of show that everyone professes how important this show was, like,
Yeah.
how would you not send somebody a $15 pair of IEMs? Hey, you're gonna
Yeah.
be on my show next week. You got headphones? Oh no. All right, cool. I'm gonna send you some IEMs just as a gift for being on my show,
Yeah.
whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and
Like,
that's probably more impactful too. I know, you know, I know many of us have I've done this as well in the past, but many of us have this process where at the end of the guest experience, as a thank you, you send like, you know, a t-shirt or a vinyl sticker or like something that is branded that's like, thanks for being on the show. I would actually say that sending something to them in advance that helps them look and sound their best on the show is going to be more impactful than the t-shirt on the end. So if you have to choose between like where your spend is, like purple branded IEMs or like, you know, whatever it is, like I would invest on that on the front end because that they'll continue to use because it made them feel good and look good and sound like, so it's those kinds of things that I think are super important. So I just think
great.
through those decisions and again have them really clearly outlined here. So if you're, for example, this document doesn't have it, but if you decide that you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to order, I don't know, whatever, 100, you know, headphones that I'm going to send out to guests who don't have it, or I'm just going to send it to every guest that I bring on that are branded. I would add that in to say like, you know, hey, on page one, like, did you get your, you know, make sure that you grab your, you know, showrunner special headphones, you know, make sure that those are in a place on your desk so that you're ready to go. Like have that line as reminders in because people may be coming from one meeting, you know, or one call into your call. Like you really just want to make sure that you give those reminders up front.
Yeah.
And then the last thing here on this list that's hugely important that we talk about all the time and is like a sponsor on this show is like really the one thing that is the biggest pain point for guests and continues and will always be a big pain point for guests is that they are going to show up on their Wi-Fi from like a cafe, or they're going to be like at a friend's house on what. So really, like, you cannot stress this enough to like actually have them check their internet connection. If they, can't make any changes, or the interview is like, they're doing it like, and it's not important enough for them to upgrade or get to a space, like have them go to speedtest.net, have them run a speed test, explain to them what upload speed you are looking for, really like spend a bit of time outlining that at the get-go and then following up with them about that, because there are changes that you can have them make that's going to make that experience better for you, them, and all of your listeners and viewers that you could change upfront. And people just don't think it through at all. If they're not used to this world, they don't think about it. They're like, oh, yeah, I have Wi-Fi, or like they don't realize that how much it impacts quality. So,
it's 100%, right?
Yeah.
Like for us, we know that we're going to want to do some stuff live at an event. So we bring our own Wi-Fi. You know what I mean? So like whenever Ecamm is showing up to an event, like we would bring a pocket Wi-Fi in order to boost signal. But I don't know, like if you're going to be a guest on somebody's show, and I know you want to promote your stuff and you want to be out there, but if the timing is going to put you to where you have to stream from a cafe or whatever, cancel the appointment, change
Yeah.
it. Like, don't be that person that shows up on somebody else's stream from a, a cafe. You know better because you're a streamer, so you know that that's not going to work. Right
Do you know?
now, if you're at Cafe Max at Apple, where you're sitting on the monkey brain's backbone, all right, that's different. But like from the Starbucks, no, fam, don't do that.
Yeah. Do you know what I learned recently that I don't even know why I didn't think about this, but check your local libraries. I know that this is insane to say, but there are a number of libraries out there that actually have now like recording spaces that you can rent for free because it's a library. So if you have a guest that's like, they live in the middle of nowhere, or they're concerned about their internet connection, that's something you can suggest. That makes you a great host to be able to give them additional resources, especially those that are free or really affordable. So, you could offer for them to go in.
Your cable access, every cable company,
town or city,
they have to have a cable access thing. It's a federal requirement.
Yep.
So here it's called a Lelo, but they have rooms set up, right? And we're talking studio rooms where they get to go in there and look like freaking Oprah with all the equipment and everything. So send them there, or like, again, if it's that important to you, you can find in the community, in the Ecamm community, guess what? We have a lot of people with streaming knowledge, know-how, and equipment, right? So if I had a person that I wanted to interview somewhere in the greater Bostonian area, and I was worried about them, I'll be like, hey, Jill, listen, can you go over to this person's office and set up, your little Canon M50 and the microphone and everything for them? I need to do the stream. It's super important. I'll throw you like 200 bones or whatever. And she'll be like, yeah, bet. You know what I'm saying? So like, Katie's right. Like, be a good host. Just like you was going to clean your living room and then serve up, little horse divorce. Yeah.
All right, let's go to page 2, Luis. This is fun to get to boss Luis around. All right, so these have changed, Doc has told me, so we need to update this. But there are instances where, again, people who are not on live streams and podcasts every single day may not think to do things like turning on their do not disturb mode, or making sure that they're in a quiet space, or double checking privacy settings to make sure that nothing gets in the way of them being able to be successful. And I cannot say this enough. Your guests are not going to think about your interview until 10 minutes before they have to call in. So you need to give them this information up front. You need to force them to go through all of these, any kind of settings, any kind of, anything that you need them to do, you need to give it to them enough in advance and set a time with them where you are either walking them through it or double checking to make sure that they have done it. So this page, if you are listening and not watching, really just outlines that, you need to make sure that your do not disturb is on. You need to make sure that you have an internet connection, you have a microphone, you have headphones or a headset. Like, these are things that, again, like, they may seem obvious to us who are doing this often. They may not be obvious to the woodworker down the street who I'm having join me for my woodworking podcast. Maybe he's not on all the time on video and doesn't think about it. Yeah, maybe not. I'm using woodworking for all the obvious reasons, but
I was like, hey, this woodworker knows what he's doing. Hey, like, hello.
Yeah.
So, no.
You're an exception to the rule of woodworkers.
You're 100% correct, right? Like, set your people up for the success, and then your job will be easier. I think this one is such a great one because, again, we talked about it briefly. The internet, the microphone, and the headset. The headset is so key. And people say, well, I have guests that are reluctant to wear a headset. It's your show. Tell them no then.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. Like, I can't explain.
You can also recommend or send them one that is not as obvious. Like, again, I'm not wearing this. I could have this behind me so that it's really not, I don't care. So for me, whatever, but I could put it behind me, or I could hide it in my shirt, or I could give them, send them the one that would make them comfortable. Yeah.
This is what they think headphones mean. And what I like to throw at them, like, even when people that believe that or think that, I like to show them the shows like, Howard Stern or Don Imus or, Mike and them in the morning. The reason why, even on broadcast networks, the pros are still wearing cans is because that's the right answer. You are a yoga instructor from freaking Beagle Creek, Louisiana. You ain't that important not to wear headphones on the internet, because right now, like, Brent Musburger will have headphones on the sidelines of a game, or Chick Hearn, when he's doing the Lakers game, he got them headphones on. So how do you think you're cooler than the broadcast professionals that we've been watching for 50 years? It just doesn't make sense. So sometimes maybe you have much nicer ways of explaining that to people. I don't really care. Like, my show is more important than, someone's feelings. I'm gonna just tell them your feelings don't matter. Fact is, you need to wear headphones. So simple.
Yeah. I mean, we have literally written here. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have literally written here in this one, headphones are a must for interviews. This helps with removing any echo. So, like, for us, it's like it is mandatory, and also this is why. Like, it helps to reduce any kind of audio issues. So I think, saying what's necessary and then giving some kind of explanation as to why it should matter to your guests as well. If they don't want to sound bad on your podcast, I would assume. Yes. Otherwise, it's the wrong guest. Like, if the guest wants to come in sounding bad, it's the wrong guest. So.
No, this sounds good enough. I was like, all right, no, then you already know you messed up. And so this, what messes it up is people, they are reluctant to ask people for the time to do the guest check ahead of time. Yeah. That thing, like, I already feel like I'm bothering these people. And then so, like, to ask them to come on early to check your stuff. Every podcast of merit that I've ever been on, they're like, I know your doc and I know all your equipment works. You still got to come to
still got to come in. Yeah. And again,
and I'm like, I laugh at that, but it's true. Right. And you'd be amazed. Sometimes it's a good thing we did. You know what I mean?
So. Well, yeah, because like, people like you who know all of the stuff are still tinkering. So, like, you could have changed some of your settings, or like what they wanted you to look or sound like may be different than what you had your settings sounded like. It also gives the host the opportunity to walk through all of the scenes or the flow or the layout of what the show is going to look like, and allows the guests the opportunity to better understand and see the show structure. So it's like, okay, we're going to start with this, like, intro music, and, we'll be chatting through that. You'll be on within 5 minutes, and then it's going to come to just us talking back and forth. Do you have any slides or anything you want to share screen? We can add that in here. Like, it gives kind of the opportunity to understand what the big picture is going to be like, and gives the guest opportunity to say, oh, actually, I wanted to be able to do an overhead shot of my hands to demo my awesome woodworking project, or I want to go over here and be able to do this, extra thing. So it all comes down to how you position it to your guests.
Yep.
And what matters most is, you know, what kind of show you want to, what you want to have. You should be looking for the guest to have the most awesome, amazing experience. So they tell all of their friends how amazing your podcast was, that they want to share it. They're excited about the experience for a number of different reasons. So make it as easy as possible. Make each one of those steps that you know are mandatory super exciting. Like, you know, the show is an hour long, but we're going to jump on a half an hour early. So it's an hour and a half total time of your time. During that setup time, like, we're going to be backstage hanging out in the green room. We're going to go through the show. Like, we're going to, you know, I'm going to introduce you to my producer. We're going to, like, make it sound really fun and awesome, because it is. It should be. Like, that experience should be fun.
So true. You know what's funny is I look at the first master class we did with Speedify, and
Mm-hmm.
Alec comes on, and after seeing our setup and stuff, yeah, Alex, the CEO of Speedify, right? He was like, Ryan, what are you guys doing to me? Let's get this studio set up. Now he set his office up.
That
He
is
got
cooler than
lights, he
ours.
got his
Yeah,
mic, like
exactly.
he got the vibe going. Like, he really, after seeing what we were talking about, he went and made a space in his company, and they do a live stream every week like we do,
Yep.
and they're good stuff, you know. So you'd be amazed, sometimes you're actually helping that person out in the long run,
Yeah.
and they'll start to understand why it's important. And I have completely, through the doing guests when I was, you know, not say working here, I would have people that want to sign up for Ecamm after they see the process,
Yeah.
and that's just gives you an opportunity to flex your affiliate game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have somebody on the
Absolutely.
show, it's so smooth. They're like, wait a minute, that was gravy. Like, how'd you do that? Oh, Ecamm, here you go. Here's my link. Knock yourself
Yep.
out. So you'd be surprised.
All right, let's choose the next page. All right, awesome. So we're continuing here. So in addition to all of those things, microphone, headphones, good internet, you also need to have good lighting. Here's what that means, you know. So here is the best way to be successful and have your shot look as best as possible. And then again, camera, like, we're not under any assumptions that every single guest that we bring on is going to have an awesome Sony mirrorless camera, but there are tons of options out there that are better than their built-in webcam. So highlighting that out, or explaining what options they can have, like, you can use your phone connected with an app like Camo. Like, there are tons of options out there, but just make it as easy as possible, or at least put it in their mind to start thinking about it, so that you can follow up later with a phone call, or, you know, by email with some additional information. Hey, did you get my checklist? Are you all set to go with all of your equipment? Any questions? Anything you need? Like, you've set that up to be successful. So, you know, again, like, we have built into this checklist, like, here's some of the affordable options that we have for, like, a simple studio. Here's the full list that links back to our kit.co. If they buy any of those items, that's the list, we get an affiliate kickback. So you can be helpful, but still helping yourself as well as helping your guest. And there's a ton of ways to be able to do this that make it as easy as possible for everyone involved.
Yep. That the thing that most people don't realize about using that phone as a camera is how good it is.
It's
And
so good.
and
So good. Yeah.
when you teach them that, they'll be like, I can't believe I haven't been doing this all along. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, man. You know, like, and then they'll say, well, how am I going to hold it up or whatever? I mean, fam, for $10, you can send them something to hold it up. But
Yep.
I've showed people how to, like, just take tape and to, like, blue tape the back of their case and turn it around, and then flip the tape and stick it to the back of their screen and just have it hanging in the middle of their screen. You know, I'm like, you can just tape it up there for now. But
Yep.
once they know what's possible, oh, they'll be your friends forever. Like, I never even knew this. I'm gonna use this for all of my meetings, you know. So
Yeah.
you'd be amazed. And again, if they don't have a Camo, hey, the App Store, fam, you can send somebody an app. You just cover it and send it, you know. So
Yeah,
easy.
I just think laying it out. They may not pick any of these things, and that's fine, but you've given them some ideas, and you've shown that you care about them being successful on your show. Like, you want them to show up looking their best, because they have important information that you want your listeners and viewers to hear. So, yeah, so I think it's
Okay,
important.
you just said something very valuable, and I want to take one more second to speak on this. If you or that guest were going to be a guest on a television show, they will
Mhm.
send you a list of specs.
Mhm.
Every show that I've ever worked with, we have a list of specs of what it requires to be a show. If you go to a concert and you're going to go watch, you know, Nora Jones sit down and sang. Nora sends a writer, and on that writer, she requests this amplifier with this microphone, with
Mm-hmm.
this type of monitor, and we have to go and acquire that to do the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we are trying to align our podcast and things to what we're taking over the broadcast space because people are stopping watching normal entertainment and they're watching things like this. So you have just as much right to ask for these things as if they were going to be on Stephen Colbert. Because trust
Yep.
me, Stephen Colbert people would send them this list, and if they didn't follow it, they ain't coming on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's not. I see. I know we're not. I know we always pull questions from the guest, but this is a good one. So Jonathan says, "Thanks for this. I always feel like I'm inconveniencing the guest with all of my requests. I'm glad to
Oh,
hear
I was
it's
going to
not
say a
taboo to
bad word
ask."
just then. Ooh,
Yeah.
I pick one of the letters that comes after E that. It's your show, fam. It is
Yeah.
your show. Your quality should be more important than anything because you are the representation of the guest. If I'm going to have a guest on this show, I am representing the Flow Riders. I represent Ethan, Jonathan, Gretchen, Paul, Steven. Like I represent Michelle. I represent y'all. So what kind of friend am I to y'all if I let somebody come up here and be faulty with you?
Yeah. Yeah, and I would stress too that like I can see how you would feel that way, Jonathan, but I think what makes it easier, or what at least I think makes it easier, is if you can get a really tight process down. It's not like you're inconvenient. It's not like you're emailing them or calling them like every day for the week leading up to the interview, being like, "Oh, and also, like, do you have a microphone? Okay, good. I'm gonna hang up now. And also, like, you really need to be in like a quiet room. Like having it all up front, giving them space, and then following back up again for like like this is the process of my show. I'm going to book you. Part of the booking process is I'm going to send you this checklist. Once you've reviewed this checklist, we have a follow-up call where we go through and you can ask any questions because I want you guests to be successful.
I'm
30 minutes
actually
before the show,
clipping.
we're going to jump back in and we're going to do, our sound check and our test, test. And it's going to be this really fun experience in the back. Like you've given them from the very beginning what the experience is going to be like to be on the show. They understand it's going to be this amount of time total as an investment. They can choose whether or not they want to be on the show. Oh no, I didn't realize it was going to be an hour and a half. I don't actually have time for that. No problem.
No problem. Right.
So that's where I think it's a mindset to think through. I think Doc is absolutely right. It's your show, but I also think we all need to get in the better mindset of being, I think that is being respectful of other people's time. Look, this is the commitment that it takes to be a guest on the show. This is the process. You know it up front. You can build that into your schedule. If your schedule can't handle that, no problem.
No problem.
It's their
And you know
decision.
what? I think what Murray says is very, very important. I want to make sure this doesn't go unhighlighted. The quality of your show is the reason why they agreed to be on your show.
Yeah.
So why would you why would you downplay that? And I'm clipping, Jonathan, I'm clipping your comment because I want to make a whole reel using your comment because it is that important.
Yeah.
You are definitely not inconveniencing
You're not alone.
them.
And you're,
What you would be inconveniencing them with is if they came up looking weak sauce on your show, right? Because that's a public thing that's now out there and it never goes away. And the minute someone looks really, really bad on an interview, you don't want to be the person that caused that. Let them be weak sauce looking on Murray's show, not yours. Yeah. You don't want to be responsible. So I think that was such a great comment. And like I love it. This is why we do live tapings. We got we got good people in the chat.
Nice. Right, we got to fly through the rest of this now quickly because we've been diving deep. But so the next couple of pages here are specific to the interviewing experience and process within Ecamm. We hope that you are using Ecamm. If you're not, no worries. But you should be explaining what the experience is going to be like when they click that link. People don't want to just click a link randomly and not know what the experience is going to be like on the other side. So it's, what browser do they need to use? Is there a specific kind of computer or phone or something that they're joining with? Is the tool that you're using going to immediately pop them up on screen? In which case, that might be jarring to some people if they're not quite right. Explain that process out, however it is. In Ecamm, It's really easy. They click a link, with their favorite internet browser, they can select their camera and their microphone, they enter their name, and they're into the studio. And it's very clearly indicated whether or not they are live on air, or the broadcast is being recorded, or they're just in off-air mode and they're having a conversation. So lay that out so that with ideally, video or visuals or something, so that when they click the link, they feel confident that they're not just going to be entered immediately into the show. You want to make them feel the level of security. Otherwise, you may have guests who, are panicked or are coming in feeling a little bit nervous, and you don't want that energy on your show. You want them to come in feeling confident, ready to discuss the topic that is going to be the main part of the show.
Do yourself a favor and record yourself a video of what it's like to be in the guest mode. You can see that weird dude with the hat in the next slide a little bit.
Yeah, click through, Luis.
Scroll down. Yeah.
There we go.
So
yep.
If you record yourself real quick in the guest mode, just do a screen capture of, hey, gang, this is what it looks like. If you click down here, you're going to want to select the name of your camera, maybe your phone, whatever. You're going to want to click here to make sure that we're on, whatever your sound interface is. If you record a video like that, to just give them the instructions, it will be so helpful. And then also, if you explain to them the mute button, the screen share button, and the hang up. I recently had a guest on who's been an Ecamm user for 3 years solid, but they had never been in guest mode. Mm-hmm. And when I told them to hit the screen share, they was like, what screen share? And I was like, wait, you never seen the guest interface before? And they're like, no. And I was like, oh, that's funny. You should definitely experience it. And call back, hashtag, this is why you should be a guest on other kinfolk show first, right?
Yeah.
So that you know what it's like, so you can walk them through the process.
Yeah, remember that most people who are not in this space, who don't have their own shows, who are not doing this often, it's already a little bit, they already have the heart going a little bit. They're already feeling a little bit nervous. They want to do their best. And so you want to eliminate any other extra nerves that can come up. So really giving them kind of a good understanding of what it's going to be like, plus the sound check is going to make them feel confident. They're like, oh yeah, I'm going to click through, Doc's smiling face is going to be on the other side. We're going to chat for a little bit, banter. I'm going to feel good and calm and deep breaths before we actually dive in. So you're giving them that experience up front, which whether or not they realize it is just going to make for a better interview. You're going to calm them down. They're going to feel better because they know what's coming next. People don't like to not know what's coming next. They just don't. Not fans of that.
Surprise!
Surprise! We should make this into I'm sure we probably have it somewhere, but yeah, Doc's right. Having a video version of it is also great. So, because some people are going to want to be able to read through this and see visuals, but some people are going to want to just click and have a video walkthrough or an audio walkthrough. So having that would be helpful.
If you don't have time to record this video, Adrian has one, Kirk has one, Diana has one. I think we have one on the channel. Just steal somebody else's. It's better if you do it because it's the personal experience.
Yeah.
But if you're chicken whatever, then come and talk to me so I can beat that out of you.
So you can unchicken you? Yeah.
I can unchicken you. We can make chicken soup. No, call back. I really think that you should just send them one of the videos that explains it through. It's super important, and it will make them, like you said, feel better, like Katie said, and they've already have an experience of what the interface looks like. It's not brand new when they first pop on.
Yeah, exactly. All right, next page. Look at us. All right, so again, this is a real deep dive. So if you're listening and you don't see these, pop on over to YouTube so you can see them. But we outline basically with a visual, literally these are what all of the buttons and things are in the screen that you are seeing as a guest. So here's what you can control. Here's where all the comments are coming through. And what's really important is if you're using Ecamm, and many other similar tools have these kinds of features, but there is a space where they can see all of the comments coming through if there's a live stream element to it. But there's also a space where there is a guest chat, which, depending on the kind of show that you have, might be incredibly important for you to let your guests know about that. Maybe the guest has something in the background that they may not want to be displaying, or something caught in their teeth or something. This gives, us the opportunity as hosts to be able to just subtly type a message over, or, what is the back channel communication? You need to let your guests know those kinds of things and where they can find it. in case something happens, because, you know, often you're diving into the content of the show. And again, you want your guests to be as successful as possible. So you want to be able to give them moments to be able to walk away or, you know, do something, and the indicators of being able to say, okay, hey, I'm going to move you off screen, so it's just me, so that you can get that out of your teeth. Like, being able to have those channels and know, for your guests to know where those things are, is hugely important. And again, you do it once and you send it to everyone, so it's not like you have to reinvent the wheel each time.
Reinvent the wheel. Yeah, I would just take this and open it up in Canva and, like, you know, just make your own. Just follow
Yes,
our
this
rules.
one, just take Doc's picture, put your picture on top.
Yeah, just cover your face with me, and it's a whole thing. Now, I will say something. This kind of doesn't matter. You can on number 6, you can toggle between dark mode and light mode. I tend to put people in dark mode on purpose for the simple reason that their monitor isn't changing their face light. I don't know if this will
Yeah.
show up on my screen, but like when I do that, it changes the face light, and I don't like that. Right when they switch
Yeah.
from scene to scene. One thing we didn't put in this list that we should probably update, also let them know if for any reason they need to look at something in a browser, open a different browser. Tell your guests never leave the tab that is the interview tab. When you leave tabs in Chrome, especially if they have a weaker computer, Chrome goes, oh, not using it. Let me release that memory, and things can go goofy.
Oh,
Right.
see,
So
yeah, that's a
I
good.
tell my users, hey, none of your business what's going on in the browser, or use your phone or use your iPad. But
Mm-hmm.
if they need to look at a browser for something, see their notes, I will tell them to open Safari or Firefox, the additional browser, do that, and leave that Chrome tab focused in the front as much as possible, unless they have a really powerful computer.
Yeah, see? And like again, like all of these tips are things like there's no worse feeling. There's no worse feeling as a guest than when something goes wrong that's outside of your control. Like, what, even if you've done a million interviews, there's no worse feeling than like if a noise comes out from somewhere, or like, you know, your phone was supposed to be on do not disturb and starts ringing. Like, you that jars you out of the energy and the thought that you were trying to get out. Like, it, so letting people know about all of these up front just reduces the chance of something like that happening. So it is really important, and you know, will make the show more successful across the board.
It's super funny. Oh, here's a good one. Paul mentioned in the chat, if you haven't been a guest on the show before, you could reach out to the community, and many people would be more than happy to have you on as a guest and like
Yeah.
test inside the community. Wednesday at, I think it's 3 p.m. Eastern. Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern. We're in the Discord. We have office hours. You can come in and just ask questions. I'm just sitting in there hanging out for like an hour or so. So you can come and ask anything, test anything, try anything. It is in the Discord, so you're gonna have to join the Discord. But I post the flyer inside the Ecamm community. So that should be like every Wednesday for the most part at 3 p.m. Eastern. And I forgot how that calculates to me. 10.
Really
It's 10.
early.
It's
Oh no,
10
less
my
early.
time. It is 10 my time. It's noon Paul's time. But yeah, just so if you want to come in and like, let me try to break some stuff while Doc is sitting here so I can swear at him directly, that's fine. I'm cool with that. You know, we want to give you as many opportunities to solve these issues as possible.
Yeah, awesome. All right, next page. Here we are. So then, yeah, so we did have a video. See, look at us. So on the last page of this is just a reminder about the setup test / sound check. So again, I'm a big believer, and maybe this is a bad approach, but people like the idea of like a digital green room. Like, you make them feel like they're on Oprah or like one of these shows. Like, you know, we're gonna hang out in the green room. We're gonna do like a, you know, a sound check, and we're gonna go through the flow of the show. You can ask any questions. Like, you know, grab a drink, grab a whatever. Like, this is gonna be a laid back, fun, fun experience before we go, before we go live or before we start the recording. So make it feel less like this mandatory, like frumpy thing that needs to be done, and more like this is part of the overall experience and it's going to be fun. Like, this is where we, get silly. We're going to go through some of the questions again. Like, give them a chance to just casually talk without any strings attached. Like, I don't know. I think it's about how you sell it. And maybe you don't want to call it a sound check. Maybe there's a cool, I don't know, other term that you want to talk it through, but I would build it into the overall time of the time investment of your show and make it just seem as awesome and fun as it can be. We do a sound check before this show every single weekend. It's my favorite part of the show because it's just like catching up and silly updates. And, Luis is going through all the different scenes, and often there's like some weird thing that pops up that we solve on the fly, and it's fun. So make it fun. Make it feel like it's
here, let's
awesome.
just go ahead and put this out there. We normally come in early, we have our setup and whatever. The one time where I was bumped against the schedule and we didn't do the tech,
it went to hell. It went
way south.
Yeah.
Now, here we are 23, 24 episodes deep, pretty much never a problem. The one time we skipped the check, it was like, hey, Katie, what? Yeah, don't skip it, right? It's like I'm saying, just about flying the airplane, man. You cannot skip that safety briefing. Here's what's crazy, and I didn't know this until it happened to me. Flying home from Leap, right? After Luis dropped me off at the airport, thank you, Luis, and we were on our way to Honolulu, and I had a direct flight from New York to Honolulu. Something happened, someone got sick in the plane, and so we had to take a dip in San Francisco. So we were in the ocean, we turned around, we came back, we landed in San Fran. The medics were able to take care of that person and get them straight. It was like a seizure type situation. And then we were on the tarmac for like 2 hours or so, waiting for them to give us to go ahead to take off again. Nobody left the plane other than the sick person and their significant other.
Mm-hmm.
When they closed the door and lined us up on SFO to take off again, they redid the safety briefing.
They're like, one more time, because we know you didn't listen originally. Here it is.
So it goes to show you that the FAA and people far more smarter than most of us, even if your butt has never left that seat, no one went out the plane at all. We weren't allowed to deplane because there's whole different regulations if you allow people to deplane, what they have to do to the plane to put it back in the air.
Yep.
So all they did was kiss us with some fuel. And while they were kissing us with some fuel, they went through the safety briefing again. It's that important. And so that's what I'm saying. Do not, once you get your checklist up, don't tune this out. And sort of what Murray said in the chat, this is your show. Don't allow your guests to bypass it. It's very important. And even if you know what you're doing and you're one of the people that covers customer support, you still need to do it because, hey, it can go silly. If you don't believe us, check out the recording from last week.
It sure can. We did it. We got through our whole thing. And I can't stress enough that having guests can be an awesome experience for your podcast or your live show. But having a process, and whatever that means to you, it could be a video checklist, it could just be a set of steps that you follow and that triggers little reminder, whatever your process and your experiences for your guests, having it so that you can easily repeat it as you have more and more guests on is hugely important and makes a really big difference. So don't skip it. Don't do it twice. Do what Hawaii Airlines did and do that thing twice.
I just love the fact that you're now officially a naturalized American because you said process and not process. So take that, Kat and Keely. We got her. She's ours now.
I'm an anomaly because I feel like I've lived in a ton of different cities across Canada and the US, and no matter what city I'm in, I always say the wrong thing or haven't been to everyone's favorite place. Like the amount of times where they're like, oh yeah, we were at Skips last week. And I'm like, what Skips? And they're what Skips? Haven't you lived here for it? I'm like I get that all the time. And I get that with what I say. They're like, oh, you don't there's expressions that I use that no one else uses. I'm just a mix of all of Canada and the United States. So
wait till she starts hitting them with the docisms. Hey, that was us to Louise in Bakehouse. And then after Louise had Bakehouse, that was Louise to everybody else that haven't been to Bakehouse. You don't know about the ham and manchego?
Sorry, we did it, Doc. We're overtime, so apologies to Doc's people who are waiting.
Well, actually, Paul changed the stream, so that was all good.
Nice. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. Paul is wicked. What you need to do for your show is get yourself a moderator. I'm just saying. So
bring Paul onto your show. He threw a comment up in there while we were streaming this. So if you're listening or you're watching this, people like Paul who like know all the stuff. Those are great guests. And Paul has not been a guest on as many shows as he should be. So if you're looking for a great, great guest, find the moderators, find the people who are like in the weeds doing the stuff. They make awesome guests.
Yep. All right, gang, that's it. We wrapped it. We did it. There wasn't really any questions other than Stefan asked about continuity mode as far as using it as a camera.
Yeah.
Continuity mode is dope. However, I wouldn't put any of my people on that for the one simple reason. When you're done your thing, if you don't remember to tell them to turn it off, every time they walk into their office, their phone will go, you want to connect? You want to connect? And that's irritating. Yeah. So until my old friends at Apple, I know who you are, people in the Wi-Fi department. If you don't fix that nonsense, I will just have to do something to you because that was irritating. It drove me crazy. And Sammy hit me up. He's like, "Come on, Doc. I don't mean to bother you, but how do you turn this off?"
Yeah, I know. It does it for me every time.
Anybody. So yeah, it's obnoxious. And so I probably wouldn't put my people on it because I don't want to set them up for failure later. So
yeah, it's a good backup. I consider it's a good backup. It's there if you really, really need it, but there are other tools that work better.
Besides, if we use continuity mode, then Eden don't have a job and
save camo.
Right? I need her to have ice cream money when we link up, right? Because me and Eden will go get them gigantic sundaes, which is
there you go.
Anyway, gang, I appreciate y'all, and so does Katie. I just speak for her.
Yeah, we sure do.
Thank you guys so much. And forget, you can catch us at flow.ecamm.com. We're all the places podcasts getting this guy. You can get us. If you'd like to leave us a review, please do. You do that over on Apple Podcasts. See, I said it right, Katie.
Nice.
You can ask questions in the volley. You can send us video questions. You can email us directly, flow@ecamm.com. And we would love to get some of your clips. As a matter of fact, you might get an email from Louise asking you to send us a drop as a fan of the show. Please do it because it's going to be fun. I can't wait to see that video. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are the best. Now, one last thing before we go. Speedify has been our sponsor forever. And you know what? I had the great opportunity. I was in the wood shop last week. I was making something on the CNC sign machine. And one of my buddies is like, I'm going to Japan. And people said, I need a VPN. What should I get as a VPN? I'm going to get this VPN that sounds like it comes from the place up in the Nordic area. And I was like, nope, fam, let me save you $35. And he was like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm going to send you something that's only like a couple bucks a month. It does the exact same thing, and it's much easier, and it's dope. And within seconds, as we were sitting there enjoying a good teriyaki chicken sandwich, I set him up with the Speedify, and he flew off to Japan the next day, and easy as pie. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so even if you're not worried about your show, just you want to travel and you want to be safe when you travel, Speedify is the answer. It's already on your phone. It's just a simple flick of the switch. He's like, you mean, so if I need to see Monday Night Football while I'm in Japan? I go, yeah, I did it. All you got to do is come in, switch to USA, and then go right back in, log into NFL Network. And they be like, oh, I see you're in California. Here's a Rams game. So, I'm telling you, family, get your Speedify on. It's much cheaper than some of those other guys, and it's amazing. And they sponsor the show. I'm just saying.
And I will say, if you're listening right now and it's still January, they're doing an amazing New Year sale. So swing over there now, right now. Go now.
Ooh, in there like swimwear. We appreciate you guys. Thank you for being a part of the Flow. Flow Riders out.
Bye, everyone.